Hi everyone, in today's video we'll be going over everything in your TenantCloud account, from navigation to real-world scenarios. First, you'll start off when you sign in on the dashboard. And here you have a few widgets that you can take a look at. At the top left, if you have any reminders for the day, they will show up there. To the right, will show what you've recently viewed in the account. Below that, there's going to be an accounting widget with other widgets on the side that will show your totals. A lease funnel that shows active versus draft, future, and ended leases. Tasks, applications, online payments, expiring leases, your maintenance request, and your overdue invoices. If you scroll up to the top and click on the dashboard widget setting at the top right, you can select or unselect certain widgets that you want to show up on the dashboard. From here, we'll move on to Portfolio, and under Portfolio, we'll first go to Properties. This is going to show you all of your properties, and you can do either the card view or the list view. If you would like to add a new property, you can click Add Property at the top right. Here you can add pictures, a cover photo. You'll be able to select the type of property, fill in the bed, bath, information, market rent, as well as property features and property amenities. At the bottom, you can add any attachments that you would like to save to that property. If you go back to the properties page, there are some filters at the top to help you filter the screen that you land on. If you'd like to only see the active, you can select status and apply the active filter, and you are able to save any of these filters that you'd like. There's occupancy, property type, balance, as well as owner, property status, and marketing status. If we click on View Property, we can see here that there will be a financials widget for that property, as well as a unit breakdown if it is a multi-unit. It will also show the general information and any of the amenities and attachments that you added once the property was made. On the left-hand column, you'll see the address, any equipment or recurring request attached to that property, as well as the tenants or any regular maintenance request. You can also assign team members, which would be your sub-admin users, to a property right here. If we go over to the right, there are more tabs at the top. First, we'll look at specs. And this is where you can assign different things such as keys, paint colors that you've used, certain doors, and flooring. This can help you keep track of the finishes that you use at a certain property and allow you to easily find what you've used prior when you need to replace them. The next tab over will be the Owners tab. This is where it will list the owner that you've assigned to that property. You can also set up automatic owner distribution invoices here as well. And if we edit that owner distribution section, there's the option to do net distribution, which would take the rent minus any property expenses and management fees, or the flat distribution, which will give the same amount to the owner every month. You can enable these both simultaneously. For the due date, we usually recommend to at least do the 15th. This allows the rent time to process and arrive into your bank account. If the rent is not settled into your bank account by the time this invoice is set to post, the invoice will be skipped for that month. So you will want to do the 15th or later. Below that is the management fee section. This is where you can set up what it will default when you move new tenants into this property. So it doesn't necessarily control the management fee invoices, but it will make sure that when you move new people in, that their settings will have this set as the management fee. Here you'll have a first rent payment commission that you can do fixed amount or percentage, and then an ongoing rent commission, which is for all of the months following in that lease. And you can also do a percentage or a fixed amount. Below that is the renewal fee. If you, as a property management company, have a fee for getting a tenant to renew, you can set that up here as well. And there's also a service fee at the bottom that you can charge per maintenance request. Once you've made any changes on this property or on this owner's tab, you'll want to click update. And if we scroll back up to the top, the next tab on the properties page is going to be financials. Here you can enter your insurance, loan information, and purchase information. If you are to enter your insurance, it does allow you to track when that expiration date will be, and it will also allow you to give yourself an email notification 5, 15, or 30 days before it expires. At the top right, you can see you can add a unit if it is a multi-unit property. If you'd like to edit the property, you can click Actions, Edit Property. You'll also have the option to delete a property, and when the property is vacant, you will have the option to archive it as well. The last tab on the properties page will be service providers. This is where you can assign a service pro to be in control of all of the maintenance requests that come in for that property. So as you can see, I can pick my service pro from my service pro list, and once I assign that, any maintenance request that comes in for that property will be shared with this service pro on their account. You can also add utility providers here, just so you're aware of which utility providers service that property. And next, we will go to units under portfolio. Page, you'll see all of your units listed. At the top, you can filter by occupied or vacant, the property, the unit type, or the marketing status. At the top right, you'll see the option to add a new property, which will take you to the same screen that you were taken to when adding a property under the properties page. If we go back to units, you can see here the units are listed. You have the option to list the unit from this page as well, and it will also show you whether it's occupied or vacant. If it's vacant, you will have the option to move in as well. Next, we'll click View Unit. And once you've viewed the unit, you'll see the general information for that unit, the number of bed, bath, square footage, market rent, as well as the property features, unit details, and any attachments. On the left-hand column, you'll see any equipments, recurring request, maintenance request, and the tenants attached to that unit. At the top right, you'll again have the option to list the unit, move in a tenant, or under Actions, edit the unit, clone the unit, or delete the unit. If you're making a property with multiple units of the same specs, it's super helpful to use this clone unit option, and it will make that unit for you as many times as you need to. Next, under portfolio, is a new feature that was just added recently called the occupancy tracker, and this was heavily requested, and our developers made it happen. On this screen, you can see when your leases expire and be able to plan for your renewals. It'll give you a visual graph of the month that each lease expires. And if you have something with units, you can expand to show the units and see those leases. Here you can filter by property, property type, lease status, lease type, or lease expiration. If you would rather see the list view than the graph, you can also see each of the leases for each property, their duration, their rent schedule, and the tenants. At the top, you'll see 3 widgets: an account for active leases, lease expiration in the coming 30 days, and any scheduled future leases. Under Occupancy Tracker, we'll take a look at keys and locks. And here you can keep a log of any fobs or keys that you have on the property that can be rented out. At the top right, you can add the key. And if you add a key, you'll be able to add a photo, enter the key name, the key type, what property it goes to, and any notes you need to attach to that key. Here I added a pool fob. At the top, you can filter this by property and units or key status. Under keys and locks, we'll take a look at equipment. And here I can log all of the equipment I have for my properties. Appliances, garbage disposals, filters, all of this can be stored here. At the top, you'll see some widgets that show which equipment is assigned, which is unassigned, any scheduled service checkups, and any warranty expirations in the upcoming 30 days. At the top right, you can add an equipment. So if we were to add an appliance, and we'll say we'll add a microwave, you can fill out the model number, the serial number, attach it to a property, and enter that date of installation. You can also add any warranty information, that way you're aware when that warranty expires, and any equipment details. You can also upload a copy of the receipt or any service orders that you have for that piece of equipment. Under equipment, we will have inspections, and this allows you to send move-in or move-out inspections to your tenants. At the top, you can see that you can filter these inspections by status or by type. To request an inspection, at the top right, you'll click Request Inspection. You'll be asked to select which property you would like it to go to, as well as the lease. Here you can see that it will autofill the tenant's name based on the lease that you select. You'll be able to choose move in or move out, and also choose which sections you require to be filled out. At the bottom, you'll set an expiration date with which that tenant has to complete the inspection by, and you'll hit Request Inspection. On this inspection page, you can change the view from card view to list view. Under portfolio, we have the leasing section. The first page under leasing is going to be applications. This is where any online applications done through TenantCloud will show up. At the top, you can filter by property and units, status of the application, screening status, and application type. You can also change this from the grid view to the list view. And then at the top right, you can do a new application. If you do add application, that allows you to create the application yourself in TenantCloud. If you decide to invite to apply, you can send a link once you have a listed unit. And we'll go over listings a little bit further down in the video. A tip here, when you are inviting someone to apply, when you put their email address in, you will want to follow that email with a comma. Whether you're inviting 1 or 5 people, you will want to put that comma after the email address, and then that send invitation button will turn green. At the top right, you have the option to screen the tenant. And here, if we open the application, you can see here you have the option to print the application. There's a timeline feature for the application showing you any activity that was done, date and time stamped. Here on the timeline, you can also upload files if you'd like, add notes, or even add tasks. Under actions, you can request a screening report, request more information, decline or approve an application, move in an applicant, and archive or export an application. When you're on the application and you have requested a screening, there will be a separate tab for screening, and they will show up there. Under applications, we'll have the screenings page. This will show any screenings, whether they're in progress, pending, finished. They will all show up here, and you can filter that by status. And then at the top right, you do have that screen tenant button again. If you want, you can change the view on this. I don't have any screenings at the moment, so it doesn't give a good example, but you can change that to be by unit or by property. Under screenings, we'll have listings, and this will have a listing available for each of your property and units. If you want the list view, you can do that as well. I prefer the grid view, so I'll leave it like that. You can filter this page by the listing status, the number of days listed, and then what syndication package you've decided to go with. At the top right, you'll have a quick button to your settings, which will show you your listing website settings. If you do have a custom domain that you would like to port in through TenantCloud, we do offer that in the business plan. So if that's something that you're interested in, definitely reach out to us and we can have the sales team discuss business plan pricing with you. Another feature that the Pro and Business Plan will have is whether you would like to do a rentals page or a company website. The rentals page is just going to be a basic page that shows your active listings. The company website is a little bit more customizable. You can change the color, add FAQ sections, add galleries, things like that, and that is included in the Pro and Business Plan. So we'll go back to the listings page. Next to that settings, you'll have a link to your website. And if I had active listings, they would be shown here. And this is that basic rentals page that's included in your TenantCloud account. Next to my website, there's going to be an add listing button. To list a unit, you can either click the add listing at the top right, or you can find the property or unit in the list below and click list unit. From there, it will walk you through creating the listing, which will also determine what application settings you decide. So if you decide to accept online applications, you will have the option to make screening required, and you will also have the option to add an application fee. The screening fee will go directly to TransUnion, whereas the application fee that you would add would be on top of that screening fee, and it would go directly to you. Under listings, we have leads. And this is where your leads will port over from Realtor, Rentler, and TenantCloud. Apartments.com leads will come in the form of an email. So on this listing page, you can see that you can filter by the status of the lead, what listing they're associated with, the category, whether they're a tenant or an owner, the source that the lead is from, and then the type. Here you can also do the list view or the grid view. If you do the list view, you are able to manage these in bulk. So if I'm no longer working on these and I want to change the status so they don't show up on my new or working, I can select the boxes next to each one and change that status at the bottom. You can also invite them in bulk as well if the status was new or working, and you can delete them in bulk. At the top right, you'll have the option to export a CSV file of your leads, and then at the top right, you have the option to manually add a lead. This allows you to put their full name, their email, and their phone number, and then what type of lead it is. Once a lead is created, you will have a timeline within that lead showing any activity that happened, again with a date and timestamp. You can also add notes to these leads, add a task for yourself, and then you can see that activity broken down. Once you're in the lead, you can invite them to apply. You can also send a message. You will want to check your message limits depending on your plan. If you are interested in having a larger limit on that, you can reach out to us and we'd love to discuss upgrading to either the Pro or the Business Plan for you. You'll also be able to see if they've submitted an application to any of your properties. Under leads, we'll have premium leads, and this is also a feature only included in the Pro and Business Plan, and it allows any leads from Rentler that are matching what your property provides, they will show up here. So it's a great way to do outreach to get those leads and get those vacancies filled. And you can also filter these by listing. The next section under leasing is going to be contacts. First, we'll look at tenants. And here you can sort them A to Z or backwards Z to A. You can also filter these by tenant type, whether they're active or archived, the property or unit, whether they have a lease or not, the lease status, lease expiration, lease type, or connection status. Here you can also do the grid or the list view for your tenants. You also have the option to import, so if you're coming from another software, you can download this Excel spreadsheet. Once you hit import, you'll download the example and then you'll be able to fill that out with your tenant's information, and then you'll be ready to import. Once you import, it'll import all of the basic information. It will not move the tenant in for you, but it will save you that time in making those tenants' profiles. At the top right, you do have the option to add a tenant, and just like on the property, you can fill out the basic information, but at the bottom, you can also upload attachments or documents that you'd like to attach to that tenant. If we go into the tenant's profile, we'll see here there's a column with their contact information, some widgets that show their outstanding balance, the deposit balance, and a credit balance. At the top right, you'll see two little people. If they're green, that means you're connected, and you'll see the option to message them. Further down on that column, you can see any roommates that they are attached to through a lease. You'll also be able to run a tenant statement report or send a notice. At the very bottom of that column, it will show you the payment settings that you have for that tenant, whether you allow card payments or bank payments, and then at the very bottom, it will say activated by tenant. If it's gray like this, that means they have not activated and added their bank account. If it's a green check mark, they have added their bank account. You can see here all of the basic information under profile. Under the leases tab, this is where you will navigate to a lot of the time in your TenantCloud account when you're making changes. So if we view the active lease, we can see here the lease dates, the lease number. At the top right, you do have the timeline feature, and you also have the timeline feature on the tenant's profile as well, but this one just pertains to the lease itself. Here you can do the same as you could on the other timeline features, add files, add notes, and add task. You can also print this timeline. Next to that is a renew button. So whenever you need to do a lease renewal, you'll go to that active lease and click renew here. Under actions and edit, this is where you can edit the lease number, the lease type, and the lease start and end date. The other options under actions are to send a move-out inspection, end the lease, or delete. We never really recommend deleting a lease unless there's no transaction history tied to it. But if you do ever delete a lease, there isn't a way to bring it back, and it will delete everything attached to that lease. The next widget down is going to be the lease agreements widget. And as you can see here, I've already sent a document for this tenant to e-sign, and it does say pending, 0 of 2 tenants signed. If I hadn't requested one yet, here where it says actions would say request, but since I have sent one, I'll click actions and edit. And this is where I can view the document that I sent off for signature, and I can also edit it if I missed anything or needed to change anything. And once I've edited it or previewed and made sure that it's filled out the way that I would like it to be filled out, you can scroll down to the bottom and hit send to review. These templates can be uploaded or you can use your own. This is one of ours that we provide, and we'll get to that later in the video on how to build that template. If we go back to the lease page, next to that is the insurance widget where I can request insurance. When I request insurance, it will give them the option to either purchase through us with Assurant, or to add their own renter's insurance information, but at least provide that to you so that you know that they have an active policy. I missed this at the top, the utility providers. If you hit configure, this will allow you to select which utilities are required for your tenant to sign up with. It will bring over the appropriate companies based on the property's address, but if there's ever one that is pulling over incorrectly, please feel free to reach out to us at support@tenantcloud.com and we can get that updated. This will allow the tenant to have a link directly to that utility company's website where they can sign up for an account, and then they can come back into their TenantCloud and enter that account information for you. Down below, we will have some more tabs. The first tab will be tenants, and this will show the tenant's information. It will also show you whether you're connected and if you're waiting for a signature. You can also see whether the lease is shared or not, and you can edit tenants at the top right of that box. Something to note, if you start with one tenant and add more onto that, roommates, you will be defaulted to separated invoicing, and this will split the rent up into assigned portions where each person gets their own invoice. If you start off with more than one tenant, you will have the option to do separated or combined, which is where they would share an invoice and be able to split it amongst themselves. Down below, you can see the dependents, and you can also add them there as well. The next tab over is going to be the lease transactions, and this will show the recurring rent that you have set up with a lot of information such as the first invoice date and when that next invoice is going to post. Here at the top right corner of that section, you can edit the recurring rent. So you can change the due date, the amounts, and you can even disable it if you need to turn off the rent in a lease. If you'd like to schedule a rent increase or decrease, you can hit schedule amount update, and you'll be able to put that new rent amount in and that new assignment for each person. Under that is other recurring transactions. This would be where your pet rent or your utility charges or parking fees would be listed. And you can add recurring transactions here. For the ones that are already added, if you need to edit that, you can click the three dots and edit, or you can delete. Also at the bottom of the lease transactions tab on the lease page is going to be the extra fees. So this includes the late fees and any management fees set up. If you ever forget to set up a management fee at move-in, you can come to this lease transactions page on the lease and click edit management fee to add them there. You can also edit that late fee at any time as well. Next to the lease transactions is going to be the agreements tab. This will house the signed document. If you do request an e-signature, it will be saved here. It will also be where you will upload any previously signed documents that may have been signed outside of TenantCloud. So you can click upload, and shared attachments will be shared with the tenant where they can also view them from their account. Private attachments is just for you. The next tab over is going to be the insurance tab. This is where the renter's insurance information will be stored once your tenant provides it. And the last tab on the lease page is going to be utilities. This will show that utility providers widget that we set up at the top of the page. And then down at the bottom, it will also show the responsibility of the tenant. We'll go back to the tenant's profile. And a little trick, when you're on a page, there will be a path at the top left. So if you'd like to go back to one of those pages that you came from, you can just click on that green link there. So now that we're back on the tenant's profile, we'll go to the next tab over, which is transactions. This is basically their ledger, and we'll have all of their invoices open, paid, partially paid. The tab next to that is going to be insurance, and this will also house any renter's insurance information that you've entered for them. Next to that is going to be applications, and this will have any applications that they submitted through TenantCloud, whether you've entered them yourself or they submitted them on their own. And the last tab is going to be any maintenance request that that tenant has submitted. Next, we'll look at the Owners tab. And owners will only show up under contacts if you're in property manager mode. Property manager mode is only available in the Pro or Business plan. So if you are a property manager who will need to set up management fees and owner distributions, you will want to upgrade to that Pro or Business plan. That way you get the property manager mode and can invite your owners and pay them through TenantCloud. Much like the tenant page, the owners page can be filtered at the top. You can do it by owner type, assigned property, agreement status, and connection status. You again have the option to import your owners and add an owner at the top. Once again, when you add an owner contact, you will fill out the information, but you do have that option at the bottom to upload any documents or templates that you would like to store with that owner. So if we go to the owner's profile, it's set up a lot like the tenant's profile. You'll have the column with the owner's balance, any required reserves you have for that owner, and then the distribution balance. Below that, you'll have a quick link to the owner statement report, which is a very important report when it comes to our property managers. This will show you all the money going into the property and all the money going out, and then it will also calculate the owner's balance or what you owe that owner that month. Below that would be the 1099 tax form for that owner, and then you can control what reports the owners have access to here. So you'll click edit next to report setting, and you can check the ones that you would like them to be able to see. At the top right, they also have a timeline feature, so you can see all activity done between you and that owner with a date and timestamp. You can also add files here, notes, and tasks for the owner. Next to that, you'll have the option to add an invoice, add an agreement, which will be shown in the document templates later in the video. And then at the top right, you'll have actions where you can edit them, you can resend the connection or remove the connection, assign to a property, import a property, archive, or delete. Next to the Profile tab, we'll have the Transactions tab, and this is just like on the tenant's profile, basically a ledger between you and the owner. So any owner distributions or owner contributions that you've gotten or sent to that owner. Next to that is going to be the Properties tab, and this will show any properties that they're assigned to. Lastly, on the owner's profile is going to be the Agreements tab, and this will hold any of the owner agreements that you have within TenantCloud with that owner. Under owner, we will have the service pros, and here you can also do the grid or list view. You can sort them A to Z, Z to A, and you can filter them by service pro type, category and subcategory, or connection status. At the top right again, we'll have the import option as well as adding a service pro. When you add that service pro, it'll be the same as the owner's and the tenant's profile. If we view one of the service pros profiles, it'll be laid out similarly to the tenant and the owner. You'll have an outstanding balance, so that will be any open expenses that you have in the system with that service pro. You can also run a provider statement report. This will show all of the transactions that you have and as expense invoices in the system with that service pro, and then you can also run a 1099 tax form for the service pro. To the right, we'll have the Profile tab, which will have all of their basic information and then also attachments if you add those when you're creating the service pro. Next to that, you'll have the Transactions tab, and this will show any expenses, open, paid, partially paid, that you have with that service pro. At the top right corner, we're going to have the timeline feature just like the owner and the tenants have. And next to that, you can add an invoice. And under actions, you can edit that service pro, send a connection request, archive them, or delete them. When you send them a connection request, they do have the option to do a paid or free account as a service pro. If they do the free account, they can still accept payments from you through TenantCloud. If we go back to the left-hand menu, the next section is going to be accounting. First, we'll look at the transactions page. This will show all invoices, paid, partially paid, open, overdue. All of these will be stored in the transactions page. You can break these down by income or expense, and you can also filter them at the top. So you can filter by the date range, the client, which would be the service pro, owner, or tenant, by the properties and units, the category or subcategory, the amount, the transaction status, accounting type, and then our new feature, which is accounting tags. Accounting tags is one of our new features, and you can add these tags by clicking on your name or your company name at the top right and going into your settings, and then you'll click on tags under accounting settings. Once here, you'll be able to add any tags that you want. An example would be if I wanted to label that an expense was paid with a certain credit card. I could create that tag here and then go back to my accounting, find any expenses that I paid with my credit card, and add that tag. I would then be able to filter on the transactions page anything to do with that tag. A tip with this, you can save a specific filter so that it defaults to a view. So it will default to being filtered for the current month. If you don't want to see just the current month when you go to the transactions page, you can clear that date range and then save that filter. At the top, you'll see some widgets. You'll see an overall outstanding total, a paid total, and an overdue total. Here, you can decide if you'd like to see an expanded or a compact view. The expanded view will show a little bit more information on the screen, and the compact view will make it into single line items. At the top, there's an Edit Settings button, and this will take you to the accounting settings in your TenantCloud account. If you'd like to learn more about your settings, please check out the Getting Started webinar on our YouTube channel. Back on the transactions page, at the top right, you have the option to do an expense. So you would select money out, and this will have expense invoices, an expense payment, which is an expense invoice that has already been paid, recurring expenses, bulk change, returning a deposit, applying a deposit, and then owner distributions. For the money in, this will be all of your income invoices. So you'll have income invoice, income payment, which is an income invoice that's already been paid, recurring income, bulk change, deposits, credits, owner contribution, and then management fees. You do also have the option to export a CSV file of whatever view you've filtered for that page. Underneath transactions will be the payments page. And this is only going to show invoices that are partially or fully paid. You can break these down again by income, expense, and refunds, and you can also filter them at the top. You will see some widgets at the top that will break down paid income, paid expenses, and paid refunds. Again, you'll have that expanded or compact view and the same money out and money in options at the top. Under payments, we'll take a look at balances, and this will show you any outstanding balances you have from your tenants. So you can filter these by property, the status of the tenant themselves, and the lease status. It also breaks it down by date range. So you have 0 to 30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 plus, and then all time. It does also give you the option to send a notice from this balance page. And on the Growth Pro and Business Plan, you can create your own templates for a late notice, which you would be able to send from here. This balances feature is available for all of our plans, and you do have the money in and money out button the same as you do on the transactions and payments. Under balances, we'll take a look at recurring. And this will list all of your recurring transactions within your system. You can also break this down by income and expense. And something to note with the income, your rents will be listed here, but you are not able to edit them from this page. So if I were to click on the rent, I can post the next invoice or I can clone it. If I click on it to open it, I still get those same options, post next invoice or clone. The end button is grayed out. If you need to end a recurring rent, you would actually want to go to that tenant's profile, into the leases tab, view the active lease, go to the lease transactions tab, and then edit that recurring rent where you can turn it off. We'll go back to the recurring page. Here you can have the money in and money out buttons at the top right for those same options, and you can do the expanded or compact view. Underneath recurring is going to be the management tools, and this is only available in the Pro and Business plan when you are on the property manager mode. So this will list any management fees that are open. You can bulk manage these by selecting the boxes and then clicking actions at the top and either doing record as paid or delete. You can filter these by date and property as well. The next tab over will show all of your owner distributions, and you can filter this by date range, the owner, or the property. Under that will be a newer feature, reconciliation, and this will bring over your bank statement and allow you to match the invoices in TenantCloud to the line items on your bank statement. You can see here, it will tell you how many are matched, how many are left unmatched, the statement balance versus the account balance, and then the difference. So your goal would be to get this to 0. The reconciliation feature is also available on the Pro and Business plans. The next section we'll take a look at is going to be the maintenance section. First, we'll take a look at request, and this will show you all of your requests: open, new, canceled, in progress. You can do this in the detailed view or the list view. The detailed view will give you tiles on the side and allow you to view the details while you have those tiles still open. At the top, you can filter these requests by the status of the request, the property or unit, who the request is assigned to, and the tenant. You can also filter by the request schedule, the category of the request, the priority, and the equipment status. At the top right, you have the option to add a request. So if we add a request, we can do an advanced request, and we can select a category. So I'll do appliances, and we will do other. Let's see. You can add some details here at the bottom. You also have the option to upload photos or upload a file. You can upload a video as well. So once you've filled out the category and the details, you can hit continue. I'll select a property, and then if I wanted to link any equipment that I have, I could go ahead and link that. So we'll say that we are linking a microwave oven that I had, and we can put that model and serial number so that we can log where that piece of equipment is going to property-wise. I can allow the tenant to see this request or not, and then I can also add an available date based on the tenant's availability and authorization to enter in the tenant's absence. Next is the date that it was initiated and then the due date for that request. You can also change the priority, and then I can add any materials that I would use in the request. Once that's created, I'll be able to assign a service pro, and I can share and post this service request to the service pro. As you can see inside the maintenance request, you will have that great timeline feature that we've seen in other parts of the system. And you will also be able to add any transactions that would be associated with that request. So if you are needing to pay a service pro that's assigned to the service request an expense, maybe for a repair or even for the piece of equipment that they're providing, you can add that here and it'll be sent to that service pro. Under request on the left-hand menu, we'll take a look at request board. And this is another feature that is available in the Pro and Business plan. If you are interested in upgrading to that Pro and Business plan for all of these great features that are added, please reach out to us at support@tenantcloud.com and we can definitely work with you to get you upgraded. The request board you see here can provide a visual for where all your requests are at. So you can see the new request, in progress, in review, resolved, and canceled. At the top, you can filter by property, assignee, client, which would be the tenant, the request schedule, the category, priority, and equipment status. Again, you have the option at the top to add that request as well. The next page under the maintenance section is recurring. Here, I've added a recurring maintenance request for myself to remember to change the filters for the ACs. So as you can see, I can set a start and end date, how many days in advance I want the request to post, and how frequently I want it to post. So here, if I click add recurring request, it's very similar to filling out a regular maintenance request, but you will be given the option for a start and end date. On this recurring page, you can filter by whether the recurring maintenance request is active, future, or ended, the property or unit, the schedule that it's on, the category, and the equipment status. The next section we'll look at will be the calendar. And here you can filter your task or reminders by property, event type, or frequency. You can also add a reminder here at the top and the date and time that you want that reminder to be set for. You can also assign the reminder to any sub-admins. Another feature with the calendar, you are able to integrate your Google Calendar with the calendar in TenantCloud. If we go up into the settings and click on integration under account settings, you will have the option to sync that Google Calendar. Back on the calendar, you can either view it monthly or you can do a week view. Under calendar, you'll have your task. This will list any tasks that you've made for yourself. You can also make a task recurring if you'd like and set the frequency for that. Next, we'll take a look at the section titled Documents. And first, we'll click on Landlord Forms. This will show all of the forms and templates that we provide with your subscription plan. Under General Forms will be the ones provided with your plan. At the top, the state-specific forms are free for Pro and Business plans. If you're on the Starter or Growth plan, it will be $149.99 and you will have lifetime access to these templates. Under Landlord Forms, we'll have My Templates. And here you can create your own document templates. At the top right, you'll click Create New Template. Starter and Growth Plan will have the ability to copy and paste and make the template that way. If you are on the Pro or Business plan, you can also upload a PDF. You'll click Get Started. It'll ask you for the template title. For any templates that you want to send at move-in with the lease agreement, you will want to select tenant agreement. Anything that you'll send outside of move-in, such as a late fee notice, balance notice, you'll want to select notice. And then for owner agreements, that would be between you and the property owner if you're a property manager. So I'll do tenant agreement. And here it'll pull up the template editor. I can type my template in the box. And I left some blank spaces in my template, and I can come over to the right side and search for autofill elements that will apply to those blank spaces. You can also add fields such as signature boxes, which can be assigned to the tenants or yourself, and initial boxes, date signed, and even text box that can be assigned to you or the tenant as well. Once you've made the template, you can hit continue, and you will have the option to add any other attachments that you want to attach on this template. You'll also add, if you want to add default signatures. I added a signature box, but I am going to add the default signatures so that there's a box for myself and the tenant as well. Once I've made that, it will say well done, and you will be able to select this template from the template library when you're moving someone in and asking for an e-signature. Under my templates, we'll take a look at File Manager. And this will hold all of the files, images, documents, videos in your account. That includes anything attached to maintenance requests, leases, listings. All of that will be here. You can filter these files by property or by file type. And you also can bulk manage these. So if you check the box next to each file, you'll have the option to delete, preview, or download. Here you can also have it by property or just in a list, and you can also do the expanded view or the compact view. Our last section to take a look at will be reports. Here you'll have rental, financial, and some calculators. We will not be going over every report in this video, but we do have another webinar that did cover all of the reports in depth. I will just touch on a few of the main reports and then a new report that has been added. So a new report that has been added is our renter's insurance report. This was heavily requested, and it will show you when your tenant's renter's insurance will expire. You can filter this by property, lease status, tenant, insurance status, insurance expiration, insurance required, insurance provided, tenant type, and property type. You can also edit to include or not include certain columns. With most of the reports, you will now have that option to include or not include certain columns, and you'll also have the option to rearrange them. Another really popular report is the rent roll. This is going to show you an overview of all of your current leases, your tenants' information, their market rent, the deposits they have on hand, credits, and then their balance. This will be a report that goes by the date that the report is pulled. A couple of big ones for our property managers or property management companies is going to be the owner statement and the profit and loss statement. The owner statement is going to show you all the money that went into the property, all the money that went out, and the owner's balance. So the goal would be to keep this at 0 at the end of every month. But if it is positive, that means that there is extra money that has not been accounted for. If it's negative, it means that the owner would owe you as the property manager or the property management money. The profit and loss statement, which is another good one for property managers, will show you all of your income that you've made outside of the rent income, as well as any expenses that your business has incurred. It will also calculate the net cash flow at the bottom. For our DIY landlords or landlords that own and manage their own properties, you'll want to look at the property statement. This is your version of the owner statement. It will show the money that's gone into the property, the money that's gone out, and then it will calculate at the bottom the grand totals. Again, if you're looking for a more in-depth review of all of the reports in this section, please feel free to check out our reports webinar video on our YouTube channel. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. We hope this gives a good overview of your TenantCloud account and everything that we can do to help make your business thrive.